It wasn't pretty, but maybe it's a measuring stick for the U to look back on where they need to improve and move on from here. And the season is still young, and there's much to accomplish. Here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, talking up Miami. We got the Holsum One to take your comments, your questions, your debate topics. Holsum One, how you doing today?
It's a tough one, man. We're licking our wounds. A lot of us, including me, was very confident, especially after what we did to Tallahassee, moving forward with our program. And unfortunately, we ran into a true program. We ran into an organization, basically. We ran into a buzzsaw, whatever you want to call it. We ran into the Clemson Tigers. And, you know, I said last week when I was on here, I'd be here no matter what the outcome of this game was. And here I am. But the Miami Hurricanes have 7 games left for this season. And if you want to talk about the new Miami, anything different from what we've done in the last decade, when we do have a tough loss, you cannot follow that up with other losses. I mean, you play the #1 team in the country, and you need to take whatever from that game, but move forward for the rest of the season. And once we can do that, I think we really have started to build a great foundation for this team.
Every week, every game's a learning experience for the fans, for the people that evaluate the team to see where the team stands. And you make a great point that we consider this a measuring stick. When you play #1 in the country, okay, how close are you to #1? But it's even more important after that to say, okay, in the past, there have been big wins, and then they were followed most recently in 2017 with crushing defeats that ruined a season that was at 10-0 after beating 2 top 10 teams back-to-back weeks at home in Virginia Tech and Notre Dame. So what is going to be the mark of this team? That it takes a hit from this and feels bad about itself, and or that it sees this as, okay, we see where we need to improve. Let's get to work. Let's get it done, and let's not look past anybody else. And let's go to work. And because the Pitt team that they play this week is certainly not a great team, but certainly a capable team. That's a tough team and a tough defensive-minded team and a run game-oriented team that could present a pretty big challenge.
Absolutely, Mark. And the tall tale of this sport really comes down to, you know, everyone across college football, especially now in the 2020s, there's athletes that have been, now we're reaping the benefits of, you know, football university that started like in 2010, 2011, when they started really teaching these young players at like 8, 9, 10 years old across the country, the foundations of football. And so we're reaping the benefits of having across the country really quality football being played. And the biggest difference is the level of coaching matched up with talent. You got some teams who have really good coaches, you know, and they do pretty well for where they are, but they don't have a good recruiting band. And so you have your Pittsburgh, sometimes your Penn States, things like that, where they have really good coaches. They're very detail-oriented teams. They know exactly what you're going to do. They rally to the football. They catch the football. They run routes at the sticks, all the little things. But then you run into a nice mesh of the upper echelons at your Bamas, even your Wisconsin, sometimes your Notre Dames, to where it's quality coaching and athletes. And we saw that on Saturday when it came to Clemson. At the end of the day, you got to take that game. You take some of the good that we did, and it was very few, but it was some pretty young guys that stood out. You look at Sam Brooks, our inside linebacker, someone who there was a lot of hype behind him, and some people pushed back on it because of said hype, but we see he is still the best linebacker on this team. It's just there. No matter who we play, no matter when he has his time to show up, he makes his plays. Now, there's been coming out about his ankle injury or foot injury, so that's why he isn't probably a starter. But we can definitely say that his snap count will go up moving forward. And any of the bye week issues, or that's 0-4 off of bye weeks under Coach Manny Diaz. But man, you see what it looks like. You see what you want to be. But you go up against a program that's been together, a staff that's been together for 8 to 12 years. They've laid a foundation, and they're just on a different tier. And you can't overanalyze this game. You can't overtake everything and say, oh, we just absolutely suck, and we should just give up and mail in the season. No, There's no need to do all of that. No need to overreact. Like I said on Twitter, Mark, disappointed, yes. Angry, yes. But overreact, nah. 7 games left for the season. And not only do I have that mindset, I believe this staff and these players have that mindset.
Because you look at any college football season, look at last year, 130 teams in the FBS, 3 made it through the regular season undefeated. Only 1 team made it undefeated the entire way, of course. And there are teams with 1 loss that make the college football playoff every year. Actually, most of them. Teams with 2 and 3 losses compete for conference championships. So the season is not over by any stretch. And let me lay out a few things for you to get your reaction on. One would be that, as I stated to you, I think a number of times as we led into this game, the reasons I felt more confident in Miami staying in the game, I picked Clemson to win, but that we would enter the 4th quarter with a game on our hands, like a 10-point game, is that improved quarterback play, a kicker that's going to not kill you in the red zone, that's going to make all the kicks that need to be made, and actually, will reach the goalpost from inside 50 yards and beyond. And those are points that have been left on the field in the past that he'll pick up when given the opportunity. It didn't arise against Clemson. Red Lashley's play calling and the improved tempo and the setup of the plays that I'd seen in the previous games. And number 4, that they just didn't mess around with Louisville and Florida State, that they stomped on them where maybe previous Miami teams would have coasted to a win by 13 or 14 points when they really should have taken them out. And they did that to Louisville and Florida State. There were basically 3 responses, I would say, in doing post-game that I received from the fans in regards to why Miami lost. One was that opinion that you kind of alluded to just a second ago in regards to, we're horrible, we suck, they're in a different league, we got just outplayed, I never saw this coming, why are our athletes not living up to theirs? Number 2 was coaching. We've got just as much talent, we got just as good a team. They took us to school, Venables and Dabo, their coaching staff, they've been around forever, been working together forever, they just schooled us. And number 3, there was a huge blame by certain people on the officiating with the 15 or the 13 penalties and those hurting at certain times.
Wow. We'll start out with the last one. So, yes, the Miami Hurricanes have 15 penalties for 135 yards. You cannot, when you go up against the King, you can't miss. You cannot miss. And there were times when we were offsides on an interception. There were times when we're roughing the passer, unnecessary roughness. Thank God we blocked one of the field goals because there was a penalty for it, roughing the kicker. But since the ball was tipped, they had to pick it up. Plenty of false starts, holding, illegal formations. I mean, all of the things that when Bobby Durkins was on my channel said that we would show up unprofessional. He wasn't nervous because we would not be focused. We wouldn't. The only thing that would change his mind is if the Miami Hurricanes showed up focused and intense and ready to go. That's all we saw was that it wasn't that. It was not focused. It was not detailed by any means. Defensively, we looked pretty good. But offensively, that was probably some of the worst stuff, man. And it's hard for me to go back and do my film reviews, but I had to do it. It's hard to rewatch it. But in that time that you are rewatching, you see, what's up, Jordan Bowman? You see a lot of things that flashed. I mean, I've been talking about Bubba Bolden. I've been screaming and banging on the door for Bubba Bolden and Nesta Silvera since maybe February-ish, January, February-ish. The third person in that trio that I talk about is Mark Pope. He's still yet to show anything. But Bubba Bolden and Nasty Nesta have showed up. And there was even some individual plays by Nesta as an interior defensive lineman that I think he probably got some nice NFL nods from. But Bubba Bolden, I mean, the shot at him going off on the sideline with the nose bleeding after blocking the punt, after blocking that kick. I mean, it might be one of those. If we ever were to do a U Part 3, it'll definitely be on there. I mean, people, it's a nice gift that's been going around since that game. He's probably got a lot of new fans from the way that he played this game and how he's been playing throughout the season, Mark. But, you know, I think the penalties was a big thing, yes. Now you talk about us just absolutely sucking. I think that's just a reaction to how embarrassing it was. You know, that's what we all kind of put our hats on, that it would be a game, that, you know, this team would be in the fight, swinging back and forth. And I feel like it could have been 10 times worse if Coach Blake Baker and his defense didn't hold on as long as they possibly could. And you know, I've been critical of him every time. He was my biggest issue, but he was the only coordinator that showed up on Saturday. You know, if the game was 21-10, about 6 minutes into the third quarter, you give that team, that defense, 7 actual points early. So if it's 17-21, you don't know how it's played out. Who knows the way that we come out? But eventually we were going to break. I mean, they played so many, 90 snaps, 90 defensive snaps. That's not only going to affect us in that game, but moving forward. Because you start the wear and tear on a team early. Thought it was coming off of a bye, but man, it was ugly. It was ugly. The other person who I really thought was going to show up was Coach Rick Lashley, and he didn't. And whatever connection or miscommunication was going on between him and De'Aaron King in the pass protection, or De'Aaron King not having the ability to make any audibles at the line of scrimmage. I mean, it was literally to the point they walked up to the line of scrimmage and said, "We are blitzing you, and we are letting them play press man coverage. Force us to get out of this." And we never did, Mark. Not once. All these other games, we would go 4 wide and open up the box, then run. Nope. We bunched it up, 22 personnel, ran dive right into a 7-8 man box. It was bad. Am I giving up on my Kings? No. But I feel like that game plan on Saturday was atrocious, and really made everybody with NFL aspirations on offense. I don't know. Even, you know, your Brevin Jordans, nothing. Mark Pope, nothing. You know, our leading receptor was Mike Harley, 3 receptions for 13 yards. It was bad. Just a bad offense again.
So, yeah, the focus goes to the quarterback first and foremost. And you talked about De'Aaron King's lack of time in the pocket at times. Also, the miscommunication or the lack of preparation in countering and getting out of certain play calls because of the defensive look. If we just had an ISO on the line of scrimmage and we cleared out everything else, and we just watched Clemson's offensive line against Miami's D line and vice versa, do you think we would get a pretty good indication of how this game went? Because I do. I think that the game was won by Clemson at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball.
I agree. It's just, I mean, their D-line versus our O-line isn't even up for discussion. But our defensive line, I think we did make some plays, but not nearly enough. And I could definitely agree with them wholesale kicking our butt on one side. The other side, I think we put up a fight, but still didn't make enough plays as far as our D-line versus their O-line. But you are correct. They won the line of scrimmage.
We talk college football here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, every day. We're here all the time, full throttle, all the time. So please check out all the videos. Released a video yesterday with my Heisman watch Also, we looked at the winners and losers from the weekend. Certainly my top 25 that actually makes sense. Where did Miami drop? Take a look, give it a look. And obviously for Miami football coverage, check out the Holsum One Holloway. We'll get the banner up and you can find him right there. The super chat's on. It's available to you to show your support as well. It's not very often that you face a quarterback 4 times, but that's going to be the deal when Pitt comes to town. And Kenny Pickett, of course, he was the one that got his first career start. It was coming off a Virginia Tech game in which he was forced into action because of an injury the week before, and he played really well against Virginia Tech in Blacksburg the week before. Then he comes in as a first full-time starter for the first time as a freshman at Heinz Field, of course, against 10-0 Miami, and that's the first time you and anybody else, we got a look at Kenny Pickett, and he was a really good game manager in that game. He moved around just enough, made the throws, didn't light it up for 400 yards, but made the throws. And ever since, he's been the Pitt starting quarterback. So once again, after Miami's beaten him a couple times, he comes back to Miami for a 4th go-around. And, you know, I saw it in the chat here, and I get it maybe from a talent standpoint that somebody mentioned, okay, now that we got Clemson out of the way, North Carolina is the only game we need to worry about. Yeah.
You know, Mark, I think a lot of us content providers have tried to, and fans are going to be fans. I mean, even I am just a fan at this point when it comes to the University of Miami. But we've tried to really control that narrative that every single week is important, man. It's no way to continue to allow that type of mindset to creep in. We are no longer that team that every week it just didn't depend. The only team we had to ever worry about was Tallahassee. That's gone. And it's going to take a while to get that filtered out of our fan base. It's going to take a while because those same folks, Mark, will turn around if we do lose and say, fire everybody, bench everybody, just the extremists. And I think another thing, including myself, is once we saw how dynamic and explosive we could be against a rival team, we felt like we were finally firing and we were finally able to do it. And it just fell right on its face on national TV. It embarrassed the school, embarrassed the program, and it's embarrassed the city. That was atrocious. But like I said, it's time to move on. It's gone. It's behind us. And Pittsburgh is a quality team that, for as long as we've been in the ACC, has always given us problems. So it's not like we're just going to line up and go 5 wide and make it into a track meet and beat them by 45 points. And if we do, hey, that's cool. But do I see that happening moving forward? No. They're going to show up. They're going to play good defense. Their defensive line, a couple of the defensive starters could play at Clemson. Okay, I think one of the defensive ends leads the country in sacks, if I believe. He's one of the better defensive ends, edge rushers in the country. Okay, so it's no way for us to start to feel like that. I even saw on Twitter some people were saying this Pitt team lost to Boston College. Why should we be worried? And that's the problem. The fact that we continue to think that what happened last week has anything to do with the next week. Because if you look at the week before, you think, oh, yeah, Miami's going to show up and kick butt in this game. And you would think Virginia, the way Virginia played Clemson, that Clemson's in trouble. We all fell for that, me included. So the week before, 2 weeks before, has nothing to do with what's going to happen on that Saturday. You got to show up and have a great game plan for that 60 minutes.
Yeah, whether it be Pitt or Boston College, if we lined them up across the board, the entire roster, and had them run 40-yard dashes against Miami's roster, yeah, we could definitely see a difference. If we looked at the recruiting rankings, we can see a difference. But those teams make up for it in different ways, and they are quality teams. They're not great teams. They're like top 40-ish type teams, but they're certainly capable. Pitt lost to Boston College last week, 31-30, on a missed extra point in overtime. And yeah, Boston College is not great, but Boston College has a transfer quarterback from Notre Dame who is really good. He is really good, Phil Jerkovich. And, Boston College is a quality team with a good coaching staff. Pitt, the player you're referring to, Patrick Jones, 7 sacks. And Pitt's a team that's 3-2. They are that close to being 5-0. They lost on the extra point in overtime, and they lost the week before a heartbreaker against NC State on a last-second field goal, 30-27. So that's where they stand this season. And, you know, is there really anything that happened last week against Clemson that you think went under the radar that's significant? Any, whether it be a phase of the game, a particular player that's not being talked about that you think was either significant from a positive that got missed or a negative that got missed?
Yes. Inside linebacker, true freshman Corey Flagg Jr. Man, I mean, Mark, I don't know if you ever rewatched that game, but think about it. If you ever do, you ever pop it in, even if it's just quick condensed version,
okay,
you'll see this number 11 flash. And he just would fly. And it wasn't like he would blast people. But here's the thing, Mark, and I've talked about this on my channel, and I try to be very careful with what I say. But it's no way that Sam Brooks and Corey Flagg Jr. look better than people who have been in our program for 4 to 5 years. That is unacceptable. And it's like they read a play, Mark, and they go. They don't read, and they're still in their stance. And, oh, coach said that I got to make sure that it's run. And then when okay, now I go. No, they read run or read pass, and they react like this. A true sophomore and a true freshman look better than a fifth-year senior and a fourth-year redshirt junior. That's horrible. But they did it. Any other player that went under the radar? Javari Harvey made some pretty good plays, but it'll go unnoticed because of, you know, the score. But if you look at when he was on the field and made his plays, Harrison Hunt had a tackle right at the line of scrimmage that could have easily been a sack, but they listed it as a, you know, tackle at the LOS. So it was just it wasn't a sack. It was a tackle for 0 game on Trevor Lawrence, and that's a redshirt freshman. Okay. Then you also look at, and he also had a blocked field goal. Special teams, defensive special teams with blocking field goals, 3 blocked field goals. That means it's effort. That means that even when we were down, we did not give up on a special play. I mean, 3 blocked field goals, 1 return for a touchdown. I also look at what we did at corner. We gave up some plays, but we played pretty well overall at corner. Made plays when chance came to us. I mean, we dropped the pick 6 by our blades, but that's probably some of the only positives I can look to. There was no positive on offense. I think the only thing I could say is that we gave out uniforms and that they showed up in a Miami Hurricanes uniform.
I hate to chuckle when you say that Holsum won. It's just the way it hit me. Obviously you're taking the loss hard and everybody else is, but it just the way you stated it. But we'll get to some comments and questions here. You know, you tried to tell people last week and a number of times that you've been on the show since after the Florida State game, and Clemson became the focus of how good Trevor Lawrence is, when people were dismissing, you know, we're going to throw him around like a rag doll and he's not that good, and that sort of thing.
I tried, Mark. I even had people come on here and say Derek King was the best quarterback in the nation. And I tried to tell him, Mark, you know, but that's the thing, is like, I don't want to come across as if I'm switching up on my squad. Like, no, I'm still a Miami Hurricane for life. I mean, that's just what it is. It is what it is. When we got on that football field, we did not look like we belonged at all. And anybody who was on the offensive side of the ball, there is nothing that you can say about what they did. Oh, Jose Borregales. I don't know if he's technically offense, but he creates points. So therefore, yeah, he still is who he was. But I give credit to offense. Nobody on the defense, or no credit to defense. No one on offense at all. Just wasn't unacceptable.
Yeah, some people confuse that if you root for a team and as long as the guys are going out there doing their best, doing their job, that doesn't mean they're all the best. They're not the best running backs in the country and the best quarterback in the country and the best wide receivers. And if you can be objective about that and say, I love our quarterback, I'm glad he's here, I wanted him here, he's my man. But if he's not the best quarterback in the country, you don't call him the best quarterback in the country, but he can still be your guy. And that doesn't mean he's not good enough. You don't have to be the best quarterback to win a Super Bowl. You don't have to be the best quarterback to win a national championship. You can do it with other things around you. You got to be really good. So we got a comment here, wholesome one from mdcbowlerkid, talking about the wide receiver crew, looking at some of the complimentary guys replacing and getting in there and getting more playing time and reps and targets than Harley and Pope and Wiggins.
Mark, there was a point in that game where you saw how fan influence can rear its ugly head. 2 plays back to back on our second drive, we had Jeremiah Peyton targeted both times.
Yep.
The first time, a wide receiver screen where he did not even come back to the football. The second time, we did a wide receiver screen to that side, and he didn't come up under. He went around the corner. So it made Mike Harley look like he didn't know what he was doing. This is what I mean about forcing people on the field if they are not ready. I understand what we're seeing right now when it comes to Pope, Harley, and Wiggins is not what people want it to be just yet. Am I happy about it? No. But obviously there's a reason why they are the starter. It's not like it is on defense to where you obviously see that when we give other people chances, they look 10 times better than the people that are starting. That's different at linebacker. That's completely different. Put the young guys in on offense. And yes, I saw Keyshawn Smith, Cam Underwood's guy, good 42-yard. That was a trick play. Let me ask you, Mark, as someone who looks at college football, when you see somebody do a trick play on the third play of the game, what does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that typically teams run trick plays because they don't feel that they can just line up and beat the other guy.
Trick plays? We relied on trick plays and penalties for first downs. We had 9 first downs the entire game, Mark. 3 in the first half. We only had 3 first downs. It's like, people want to make this about start that person, start. We got to figure out the root of this problem before we start pulling and plucking at who needs to start and who doesn't need to start. The main focus needs to be the mindset. And I talked about this last week. Psychologically, how would our team be going into Death Valley? I mean, you talk about our players' false starts and illegal formations with only 20,000 people in the stadium. Could you imagine how it would have looked with the 83,000 capacity mark? But this is why I'm happy it happened when it did. Because all of us had our humbleness, and we are eating our humble pie, and we hate it. I would much rather it happen now than to go the whole, let's say Clemson wasn't on the schedule. And let's say we replace Clemson with Duke. And Miami runs the table. Undefeated Miami goes in the ACC championship game. And that happens in the ACC championship game. That would be 10 times worse for us as a program. Let's lick our wounds. Let's refocus and figure it out moving forward. I mean, yeah. Are other rival teams going to say what they got to say? We would do the same thing if this was Tallahassee getting shellacked. We'd be in their chest. If this was Florida getting beat down, we would get in their chest. So that stuff doesn't bother me. The dude in the chat talking about we suck. Cool. That's fine. We beat you 42-10, 52-10. But at the end of the day, we got bigger fish to fry. And that means the Pitt Panthers. Just that simple.
Because the situation you just outlined could have been the situation based on the original schedule. Clemson added to the schedule when there was a revised schedule because of COVID and the elimination of the non-conference games. And Miami had, of course, all the division games. Then I believe it was Wake and somebody else. It wasn't Clemson. Well, it's always Florida State. It was Florida State and Wake, I believe, were the two non-division games. And so, yeah, it could have been
Michigan State, and I think it was. I know the first 4 games had Michigan State at the end, but we had like
sure
UAB, Temple, and there was one more cupcake.
Yeah, well, if it would have been Michigan State, UAB, and Temple, the other would have been an FCS team most likely. But you might have had a 2017 all over again. The only thing that happened there was obviously Pitt was right before the ACC title game, and so you got tripped up. But you could add a similar situation where you didn't see in that season the best and well, maybe you guys were the second best team in the conference, but obviously a Florida State team that was you guys took care of them that year in a close game. But yeah, where it was fool's gold until you met the elite team at the end of the year in the championship game. But now you got a measuring stick, you got wounds to lick and work to do. And if you got the right leadership in the locker room and coming from the coaching staff, but it's also got to be in that locker room, then you're in a good mindset. You're at least knowing what needs to happen.
Absolutely. And Michael Williams corrected me. It was Wagner. So it was Wagner, UAB, Temple, Michigan State. So it was like a gradual build up, which probably would have been important for us, but I like the way this is going. And yeah, did I like getting my butt kicked on Saturday? Absolutely not. But at the same time, it humbled. I think it was the thing we needed, Mark, because us as a fan base, and I can't speak about the team. I'm not in their locker room. I don't know. But obviously they started to, you can see signs of that. They started to kind of feel themselves. Okay. And got away from the little things. You were able to see that just clear as day from how the outcome of the game went. Going up against a team that literally went their first 2 drives and ran the most basic plays straight down the field and showed us that we're just not on their level. They didn't go up tempo. They walked to the line of scrimmage, looked to the sideline. Okay, that guy's blitzing. We're going to literally just run right where he blitzed. Ready, go. Boom. All right, and walk to the side, walk to the line. I mean, it was just atrociously trolling us and letting us know we are not on their level. Every facet of the game. Oh, you're hyped about a false start. I tell you, one of the things that really made me worry, Travis Etienne had a false start play, and our linebackers are jumping up and down and pointing at him, laughing, and he just goes, okay. Very next play breaks for 30 yards on a simple dive. It just like those little things. It was sad, man. It was bad. It was bad.
How often do you think a coach and his coaching staff is able to look at the film that week, and regardless of the noise out there, shutting off all the media, all the fans, all the social media, shut all that off because they really don't know what they're talking about. And these guys in the coaching room, they know know in the film, they know talent when they see it. They know good coaching and schemes when they see it. And Dabo let that out a couple of years ago, 4 years ago, when they beat Ohio State 31-0 in the college football playoffs. You know, he was very respectful, but it finally came out that he knew that they were in a good place going into that game.
It happens more often than you would think, because there in the coaching fraternity, there's this big respect factor. I mean, you never want to, because you never know when you're going to need someone else for a job, you know. So, and that's why I try to be very careful. But at the same time, you can be critical. Just you have to kind of straddle that fence, sure, and be critical and not disrespectful and attacking someone personally. But you can come at them professionally to a certain extent. But then, Mark, there's always this one word that people use as an excuse, and then they also use it to back up a point. And it's called execution. You know, because you could have an amazing play called, but if your QB doesn't, you know, if the center snaps the ball right over the QB's head, that play's dead. The QB, if there's a read option and the QB is not reading the defense properly, and he could have handed it off for a 20-yard game, but he keeps it for a -2-yard game, to start the game, which is what Derek King did. It's an argument that he's mentally shot right after that. Like, all of the confidence is probably sapping out as we speak from the minute they tackled him to start the game for us on offense. You know what I'm saying? So it gets to a point where, yeah, there was coaches, and there's always coach talk too. And I tell people, man, make sure you watch interviews. You can hear when a coach can just, it sounds like they're overhyping us. That's like a quiet confidence that they're doing on purpose. It's trolling, basically. Like, oh yeah, they're big time, man. They got big dudes, fast dudes, you know, they can catch, they can jump, they're playing aggressive. Now, that's a really good team over there. That's coach talk for we're gonna kick their face in. And I'm gonna show you who the team really is. And that was Dabo all last week. He was talking us up like, oh, I've been waiting on this game. A good Miami team coming to Death Valley. Let's go. He knew if they executed to the degree that they have, as detailed as a game plan that they have, it wouldn't be a ball game. And that's exactly what happened.
Mike Williams, thank you so much for a number of comments in the chat. Also, thank you so much for the super chat. We appreciate it. And the reason we want people to contribute here to the super chat would be first and foremost because you value the content. You value the content that we deliver here on the channel on a daily basis, multiple times a day. And then in particular, the Holsum one, bringing the X's and O's breakdown of Miami football personnel. Just to be very transparent about the situation, what happens is you contribute. We take out the taxes and the fees, and then the Holsum one and I, we split it because it's my channel, but he delivers on the X's and O's and the personnel breakdown. And we only have a great channel here because I'm a facilitator. I'm a host. Sometimes I'm an analyst. You get all the full gamut from me, depending on the video, depending on the live stream, the call-in shows. But I try to bring on the best quality guests. And the Holsum one is certainly in the middle of all that.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Mark, from your perspective, as someone who, I mean, you had Pigskin Pete on, you've had Bobby Durkins, you've had me, you've had Cam. Going up into that game, you made it very known your viewpoint on it. Like if both teams played their best game, it still wouldn't be very close between us and Clemson. So what was some of your outlooks as far as from afar, you're not affiliated with any team, you know, what was some of your viewpoints? And my second question follow up to that is, when did you feel like there was that tide that turned, when the dam broke and you knew it's going to get ugly from this point forward?
So I go back to the line of scrimmage, because people love to watch the wide receivers and the running backs and the quarterbacks, and I do too. But I don't think we give nearly enough credit to what's going on at the line of scrimmage, because that impacts it all. And I just wanted to make sure that I was seeing the same thing that you were. And I had the same thought that I'm expecting a great battle, and I was intrigued by the Miami defensive line against the Clemson offensive line, because they lost the 4 starters, but they did have guys that are now starters that had reps. We're not talking about just guys that just stepped on campus. They had reps in the system. They had reps in, you know, games throughout the season. So they had experienced guys, and they've got one of the best left tackles in college football in Jackson Garman, against the Miami defensive line that has the 2 stud ends and is very strong in the interior. So I was fascinated to see how that was going to play out. And similar to what you just laid out, I thought that there were sporadic plays. You know, you saw the sporadic flash from a Jalen Phillips. In particular, he comes to mind, but by others up front. But I thought that was won 75 to 80% of the time, if not more, by the Clemson offensive line. That Trevor Lawrence, it wasn't like he had all day, like sit back there and crochet. But he dropped back and he got to go through his progressions, do, and then like that was most of his dropbacks. Mm-hmm. The mismatch in the game I anticipated would have been the Miami offensive line against the Clemson defensive line, and that played out. Cam Harris ran 8 times for 3 yards. The thing that I would love to see the coaches film on is the wide receiver separation or lack thereof on the Miami side, because I heard about it and I could tell, you know, from what you can see on TV, that was the sense I was getting, that there was no separation.
No separation is an understatement. You know, when you watch film as much, they give sometimes where they give that one-on-one view. And it was like, especially when we went down the field for a lot of those deep throws, those 50-50 throws, and a couple interceptions came out, or PIs when they were trying to give us a chance to stay in the game. And it was just like they were right there. You know, even when we tried to fight back through the ball, it showed that we have a lot to work on in the weight room when it comes to our wide receivers, because their corners, their builds, it was nothing we could do to fight back to the football, you know, because they're trying to like work moves and move and shift, and they couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't move against press coverage. They couldn't even get off the line of scrimmages sometimes. So it threw off all of our timing. And like I said, I'm a big dude, so I never played out there, never played corner, never played safety, you know, I never played wide receiver. And I give a lot of those people respect for being able to do what they do and track a football at top speed and be able to jump and run and one-hand catch. That stuff looks cool. But, man, I tell you what, if I'm working my behind off in the fronts and we give you a chance, you better catch that freaking football. Because I'm out here fighting and going to war so that you could be fancy and score touchdowns, and you can't even catch the football. We can't run simple routes, basic routes. You know, we get a simple slant to try to get a drive going, drop. You know, we try doing a little quick wide receiver screen. Dude doesn't even attack the football. He just keeps on jogging, and then he's looking at the quarterback like, oh, what happened? You know, all the little things, we just looked bad. Bad. And it was on a national stage, so it made it look even worse.
And you asked about the time in the game in which I knew the way this thing was turning. And it wasn't the type game where there's a fumble on a kickoff, so they only have 20 yards, and boom, they hit the first pass for a touchdown. Then there's a pick six, and it's 21-0 before you can turn around. It didn't happen like that. Right. But it didn't take. Yeah, I didn't want to take too much away from. So Miami. Yeah, I just didn't want to take too much away from like one drive per team. But even after just one drive on offense from each team, it being Clemson and Miami and already having a perception of where they stood going into the game, I pretty much thought, you know, Clemson's going to win this game by 2 or 3 touchdowns at least. I just thought it was pretty obvious by, again, the line play and the lack of separation and just the way it was going. And the play that Bubba Bolden made on, no, I'm sorry, the blocked kick right before halftime on the 61-yarder. I can't think of who blocked it. The kid with the hyphenated name.
Harrison Hunt.
Yes, Harrison
81.
Hunt. I wanted to say Hunt, and yeah, Harrison Hunt. And then DJ Ivy picked it up, right? Yeah, DJ Ivy scored. Like if there would have been a reversed first half and Miami would have played lights out, been up 21-3, then Clemson got the block, I would have been like, uh-oh, they might be waking up. And this second half might be a completely different deal. Like you woke them up, you completely dominated. Like the yardage at halftime was like 310 to 75 or something like that. But I didn't feel that way. I just thought, Clemson gave them one, and it's 21-10. Now, on the scoreboard, that's a game. If you're down 21-10 at half, that's not good. You don't want to be down by 11, but it's a game. You got plenty of time. But I didn't feel that way. I just thought that was a blip on the radar, and it was going to go back to exactly what it was, because I just had confidence in Clemson. They've been through this before. They play in big games all the time. They didn't like that happened, but I was thinking that's not going to faze them.
Wow. Okay. And see, like, that's why I asked, because for me, that made me confident that we can wake it up, especially because we had the ball coming out of halftime.
Yeah.
And what do we do with the ball, Mark? Dive, QB draw, 3 and out. So we go into halftime and we talk about what we're seeing on the field, and that's what you come out and do? I mean, I was the main one, had everything in the world to say about Coach Rick Lashley and how confident I was about him. and he and his side of the ball did not show up. I don't know who said anything about playoffs. That might have been somebody in the comment section, but nah, no, we're nowhere near that right now. That's okay. That's okay. I think this lets us know who and where we are, and it's all we can do from this point forward is grow from it. That's how I look at it.
There have been teams that have made the playoffs that looked really bad against in one particular game. I can think of several, but they racked up like 4 or 5 or 6 other like top 15 or 20 wins. So they had shown that that was just a bad game. The other thing is, why worry about the playoffs? Just Pitt is capable enough. I think that's about a 60. I'd have to go back to my original projection. I did a percentage projection on all the games, but in my opinion, really hasn't changed about the two teams since preseason. I'm going 65-35 Miami. I think they're like 60-40, but I'll go 65-35 at home in that game against Pitt. So Pitt's capable of winning this game. I would not be surprised. It wouldn't even faze me, but I think Miami's going to win.
Me too. It wouldn't surprise me either. But unfortunately, that would continue to push that narrative that we lose one game, there goes the locker room, there goes the confidence, there goes the recruiting, just like that. And I'm not going to feed into that. I think that things are different. I mean, when your leader is your QB for once and not your inside linebacker who isn't that good, all those type of things, I really think there's a different demeanor about this team. And I think they needed to get kicked in the teeth to realize who we were. Because we were riding high after beating the crap out of Tallahassee. So, I mean, I understand it moving forward. And I will say this before. People can call me whatever they want for it. But I would much rather the game go the way that it did week 5 than go the way that it does an ACC championship game or in a playoff game. You know, Miami couldn't pull an Ohio State 2017 where they get there and then lose 31-0 in a playoff game. Miami would just lose all its recruits and everybody would give up on the program if something like that happened to us because we haven't built something sustainable to just yet. Because then the narrative would be Miami finally plays a real team and they get shellacked, which up until this point has been proven correct for God knows how long. And even some instances, if we play some average teams, we get shellacked. So this upcoming Saturday is the only game that matters. You know, like I said on my live yesterday, we get past that live. You know, we wait until Monday on my channel to discuss things. And thank God I don't do post games because I would have been super emotional and saying all type of crazy things. I take some time, watch some film, give us some days, and see what we do. I mean, I enjoy being like kind of the voice of reason to a certain extent and letting people know we just aren't there yet. And I watched the film. I saw some good things. I saw some fight, but there was just two different level of squads that played each other. You know, we really saw what it's like to be a top 3 team and not be a top 7 team that was pushed up there. That's 2 separate things.
Yep. All right, folks, I'm going to sell it here. I don't like to do this, but we got the Holsum one right here. You got to go over to his YouTube channel. That's all there is to it. So if you're watching this video, which we've got about, what is it? Don't have my glasses on, about 85 or 90 online, I think, something in that range. But we're going to have 2,500, 3,000, whatever views on this. So everybody's got to jump on over to the Holsum One's channel. I'll pull up the banner right here. The other thing you need to do for us is subscribe right here to MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. That way you know when we go live. Even if you support the channel, watch, and so forth and so on, you don't know how much you help by also subscribing and hitting the bell for the notifications to know when we go live. And if you just want to keep this thing going and catch the vision, then help us out in that way. We're launching an SEC live show Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time. We've got like 8 or 10 guests lined up already. So we're going to filter in and cover the entire SEC every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Any parting shots, Holsum One?
The Miami Hurricanes are 4-1. Probably our best record in a while, if we're being honest with ourselves. Last year, 5 games in, we were what, 2-2, I think, 2-3, somewhere in there. The year before, same thing. I mean, we got shellacked by LSU and then lost a couple other games that didn't really matter. So I'm pretty happy about the record itself. You turn on the film and you see that the score isn't even indicative of how bad the game actually was. But you got to take from that, put it behind you, and I hope the team moves forward. I mean, this fan base and their fan base is going to have everything to say about how they shellacked us and embarrassed us the last 3 times we've played them. And that's fine. They deserve it, because if we would have won, we would have been coming on talking crap the whole time anyway. So that's fine. I genuinely think there is a lot to build off from that game. You saw Bubba Bolden's leadership. You saw Nessa Silvera's playmaking ability. You saw Sam Brooks flash. You saw Jalen Phillips show something off the edge. Gilbert Frierson has been playing some of the best ball at that striker position for us. So it's a lot that we could take from it. Going into this game against Pitt, it's going to be a pretty good – I mean, we're going to have a preview for that moving forward. I'll probably be on the game later on this week with you right before. Talking about Pitt, preview for Pitt. But just a quick synopsis, very well defensive team. A couple of heartbreaking losses, so they're going to be motivated. Maybe a little bit down, because of back-to-back heartbreaking losses can really do some damage to the psyche of a team. And they're going to come in off of that film, and I think they're definitely going to be pretty excited about having an opportunity to take advantage of a down Miami team right now. We have to prove that we're not. We have to prove that this ain't 2017, and one loss isn't going to lead to 3 straight after. So I'll see you all sometime this week, and we'll get a better preview with a breakdown of each player and what to look out for. But as far as the Clemson game, it's behind us, and as of right now, the Kings are 4-1, and let's see what we got moving forward.
Folks, you can contribute as well on Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal. Just search MarkRogersTV. Lock it in right here. Get on over to the Holsum One, Pitt, Miami. We'll have more coverage coming up this week. Lock it in, and we will see you soon. Holsum One, we always appreciate it.
No problem, Mark. Go Kings.